the Trump debacle, the last week of developments, I didn't misunderstand anything in the Justice Department's filing that they had actually raised the argument that Trump was not entitled to injunctive relief because he had waited 2 weeks to file the injunction and therefore was time barred from so doing?
I mean, the request for a special master really isn't injunctive relief. So they were just, trying to say the ship had sailed and all. But again, that's not really a good argument for denial of a special master. So I think they would have been better served bringing their action sooner, but there was no legal requirement that they bring it immediately.
And a special master is an ongoing thing. It's not like a punctual come in and stop something at day one and then you're never done again. It's someone who has a lasting role throughout the investigation.
Well, at least through the raid, through processing the raid.
Okay.
So it's a document process. So all that happens when a special master gets appointed is that all the documents are transferred to the special master that are in any way in question or in controversy. Ideally, all of them. Period. But and then the special master filters through on an ongoing basis what might be privileged and what might not be, and then sometimes allows argument on what might be privileged if there's a dispute or controversy. So the government normally doesn't like special masters simply because it delays their processing of information. But them saying, hey, we've already processed it, well, then what's the prejudice to a special master at all? Then there's no prejudice to a special master. The only prejudice is to if the government got it wrong and seized information that clearly wasn't relevant. And the court also released this week the more detailed inventory, the kind of thing that should have been in the inventory given to them at the scene, in my view. But that detailed inventory badly undermined the government's case because it showed very, very few documents that were actually seized that were even labeled classified, and that about 99% of what they seized is not even labeled classified. And so their only excuse for that is that they were presidential records. And that's been fully adjudicated, which the government has yet to address, and many of the media defenders of the government's position is yet to address. Which is, I'll occasionally get comments on the YouTube channels. The rest say, "Oh, and Twitter." These people that clearly don't know what they're talking about. Oh, they're like, "No, presidential records are independently determined to the president." And it's like, no, they're not. That's already been litigated. It's already been adjudicated. That's already been decided. The only case to look at it says the president has the unilateral, non-reviewable authority to determine what is and is not a presidential record for official record-keeping purposes, which has to be the case because everybody else's power comes from the president. The president's the only elected constitutional official, period. The idea that some unelected official could have more power than the president in the executive branch means our Constitution is gone. And so the argument on that. But basically, they seize like framed photos. This is a complete crock. According to Trump, they searched Barron's room. They searched Barron Trump, his teenage son's room.
Robert, where do you think he was hiding the documents missing from those empty folders? They're in Barron's underwear drawer.
And the implication is that they were looking for blackmail material. That they were looking for by Trump. That one aspect is they were looking for the deep state docs that I think Trump took with him that weren't there. 48 folders. They're made a big deal out of. Took photographs of those folders that everybody's like, "Oh my God, Trump is done. He's finished." It's amazing. Some of these people, God bless them, just panicked. How do you keep honestly, even some good people like Technofog and some others. Why do you keep taking the government's word at face value? Quit doing that. And then they're like, oh, it turned out that all those scary looking photos of classified, deeply secret. There were empty folders. They staged the photo with empty folders.
Let me steelman this in as much as possible, and I'll get to that super chat question in a second. The implication, and you have some, what's his name, Kirshner? I don't know who the individual is, but you have this guy named Kirshner who used to be a federal prosecutor saying, if this were anybody else, the fact that the folders were marked classified and empty, where do the documents go? Now, so where might the documents have gone, Robert? Why might a folder marked classified be empty?
Well, I'm sure that Trump's two different things. It may be that, of course, Trump kept a lot of those files. Which again, he's entirely legally entitled to. This idea that you can have somebody that has more power legally, constitutionally, than the president makes no sense at all. if you understand our constitutional framework. But it's how the bureaucracy really thinks. When Biden in his red sermon speech this week is talking about democracy, they mean the deep state. They mean the bureaucracy. That these people are a threat to the deep state. These people are a threat to the liberal bureaucracy. These are unelected people. These are people our Constitution gave no right to whatsoever. The president could eliminate their entire position. So the idea that he could somehow has no legal right to declassify is just insane. But putting that aside, the other plausible explanation, the only reason you'd keep those folders around is if you already turned over the documents. If the documents inside those folders were part of what was already produced back when they subpoenaed them. So they were making an implication that was completely false. And everybody just took it for granted that the feds were now not lying. I mean, it's amazing. Everybody panicked in response to it. Aside from the fact they're fundamentally legally still wrong about what is and isn't classified, still legally wrong about what is and isn't a presidential record. They were completely, they should have known the feds were lying. That's all they've done. And it came out this week. Last week, it came out the FBI division running this is what I call the heart of the deep state, the FBI. Same people who ran Russiagate, et cetera. Now it came out this week because even Andrew Weissman, that corrupt hack, is recognizing that there's some serious problems with how Justice Department has handled this. And he was trying to run excuses for them, as Julie Kelly pointed out. And it's because it's the deep state wing of the DOJ that's the only attorneys they're allowing in the case, which, by the way, is another sign of a corrupt deep state operation. They don't want U.S. attorneys from Miami involved. They don't want U.S. attorneys from New York involved. They don't want anybody else involved other than their little deep state ring inside the FBI and the Justice Department, controlling this case from top to bottom, which means it's about primarily, my belief, getting back deep state documents. John Ratcliffe, former Office of Director of National Intelligence, confirmed that this week. Lee Smith, who writes for Tablet, wrote Plot Against the President. That was the basis of Amanda Milius's good movie. Also wrote that this week. Paul Sperry, head for Real Clear Investigations, had previously written that. So multiple sources are confirming what I said on the day of the raid, an hour after it was published at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where you get exclusives every night.
I am intelligent by association, Robert, because I'm next level under. Like, I'm next level, not at your level. Would not necessarily have gone there. And now when I heard that they were going through Melania's drawers and Barron's drawers, so they might be looking for the compromising documents. Are they looking for their own stuff? Like, they might find something embarrassing about Barron that they weren't looking
use. Maybe. I think they were desperate to find what they were looking for. But my guess is they thought they would have the ancillary benefit that they would get some sort of blackmail on Trump. Because, this is getting to go through his. But the thing is, old Trump believes in Barnes's lesson: never in writing, always in cash. And whatever you do have in writing, you don't keep at your house. Anybody knows Trump knows he doesn't like email. He doesn't like text. He only talks verbally. You're not going to find much of it in writing with old Donald. Cash depends on the circumstance. But my guess is they were hoping to get a little lucky, because they're the kind of idiots to have dumb stuff on their computers, to have dumb stuff sitting somewhere around their office or their house, right? That they think everyone is as inept as they are.
Like, they think Anthony Weiner. They think who was the other guy that John Podesta emails.
Petraeus. These people had your easiest to prove crimes in the world.
Oh, sorry. I'm just bringing up chats as we go. Okay, so Robert, so the empty folders, it's not going to be a question of he gave the information to Russia. I made that as a joke, but that seems to be the implication.
That's the fantasy. But why would you keep the folder? You only keep the folder. Maybe he was having fun trolling them, but the only other reason you keep the folder is because the documents were already taken out of the folder, and so and given to them as part of the subpoena process. If you were going to give the documents to someone else or keep them and again, he legally can give them to other people. He could legally publish them to the entire world, right? That's his power. And that's what the Constitution gives him. You got a problem with it? Take it up with the Constitution. So it doesn't matter, but he wouldn't leave behind an empty folder if he gave it to someone else. That makes no sense, but that's the way these people imagine Trump being like a nitwit criminal.
Well,
they're nitwit criminals.
I meant like Hunter Biden, like the crap that Hunter, like documenting, keeping us. Oh, we'll find him smoking crack with a prostitute because that's the way we think. So Trump has to be that stupid. Maybe maybe barons smoking crack, and maybe barons.
Well, I
like
mean,
a
I
hunter.
definitely thought the fact they went at Barron stuff, and Trump even hinted at that he believed that they were the reason why they went through Melania's personal stuff, the reason they went through Barron's personal stuff, is they're hoping to find something on one of them. And they were obviously unlucky and unsuccessful in it. But I mean, you look at the Kennedy family, the entire family was targeted. I mean, once John Kennedy turned in their minds against the deep state by 1962, it wasn't just John Kennedy that was targeted. Robert Kennedy was targeted. The kids were targeted. If you followed them over time, you'll see a pattern. If Robert Kennedy Jr. talks about running for office, suddenly an extraordinary story will leak negative about him from certain circles. And so a lot of that kind of stuff, worked with different audiences. So it's what they live for. And do a confession through projection. The compromise, they're obsessed with the idea that the Russians had something on Trump. The reality is, they're the kind of people who have something on them, and they wanted to get something on Trump. And they clearly were unsuccessful. And Trump's rally this week was a sign of that. I mean, their big win this week was in the courts in the District of Columbia, where Carter Page's suit was dismissed entirely without a right to discovery.
Okay, we'll get there in 1 second. Just one more question, because I do sincerely want to steel man the arguments. When the media now is out on a frenzy that the documents were not marked classified, are they suggesting that the information was in fact classified and ought to have been, or are they just clinging to what they've got, which is documents that were not classified?
They have to excuse the fact that 99% of the documents seized were not even marked classified, which means they weren't subject to the whole thing to begin with. And so they're going to pretend, well, they must have secretly been classified. They just weren't marked classified. How does that work?
Okay,
so, and again, this is pretending that classification is a process outside of the president of the United States, which, if people think this through, that's really both dangerous and absurd.
Imagine being such a point of sale system that you resort to searching a young man's room. Well, it's very telling.
I think they were looking for something. They're assuming that Trump's family is like Hunter Biden's family, and they never have been. I mean, and that's been one of the great testaments to Trump. Whatever you can say about his personal life and his personality, his kids are a constant testament that there's something to his character that's a lot better than pretty much every politician alive today.
Oh, but Robert, not according to Sam Harris. Trump cares more about himself than his own children. It's evident.
That's projection. That's confession through projection. Sam doesn't strike me as much of a family man. He's an inherited kid. He inherited all his wealth. I mean, he didn't earn it. He got it from mummy and daddy. But it's not a surprise. I mean, it shows the insanity of that world. But that's the kind of insanity that leads to that kind of speech.